My name's Kathy Hurst. I'm an interiors journalist and this is my home in the Cotswolds. Come and take a look. So we're going to start the tour outside. We're here in the South Cotswolds. It's a beautiful part of the country, gorgeous Cotswold stone. You can probably hear the birds singing, really beautiful and peaceful and yet brilliantly connected to Oxford and Bath and Bristol and so on. We completely renovated the house in 2015, added Cotswold stone tiles on the roof, re-rendered, added kind of Cotswold stone additions, the bay window. So we've got a nice sunroom, which is amazing on a day like today. Really kind of lets in loads of beautiful natural light. We also added a garage in Cotswold stone. My dad helped us build this shortly before he died, and my kids used to call him Bubba, and so we call it Bubba's Barn in his memory. And it's really lovely to kind of have a physical, tangible part of him, something that he's kind of laid his hands on in our home. So the downstairs is kind of used as a garage, obviously not for cars, for all kinds of kind of stuff, storage. But the upstairs there's a studio, and the last 3 years that's been home to a Ukrainian couple who had to leave their home in Ukraine. You know, we just kind of felt that, you know, we had this accommodation, we had this space, and my dad really instilled in me social justice and kind of doing the right thing. And when I heard about people needing homes, their homes having been destroyed, I kind of felt like, you know, we had to offer up that space, and it's been really lovely for the last 3 years to share our home with them. So we've also got quite a quirky addition to the house. Do you think you've got time to take a look at it? It's a chapel. It was built in the Victorian period. It's just over the road from our house. It's kind of really part of the landscape. It's one of the things we really fell in love with when we first saw the house. So there's this lovely chapel, there's a phone box, and it kind of feels quite a kind of quirky village feature. When we moved in, we used to come quite a lot to kind of Christmas church services here. And then one day we saw the chapel was on the market, and we kind of felt that it's such an important part of this village that we felt that we had to buy it and kind of preserve the identity in some way. Here we are in the entrance hall. This was one of the spaces in the house that really sold it to us when we first viewed it. I think that the previous owners made an inspired decision when they chose to take out the ceiling here in order to create this double height space. It's meant that we can have this incredible chandelier here. It feels kind of light and airy and inviting. As a first step into the house, it always feels quite a special place, I think. We also laid Cotswold stone tiles in here. There used to be a wooden floor here, a nice wooden floor, but we wanted to create cohesion and have the same flooring throughout. So through here there is a guest bathroom, but I want to take you first through to the kitchen, which is through this way. This is the kitchen diner. It really is the beating heart of our home. We spend so much time here cooking together, eating together, and it's a really light, bright space. Even though the ceilings are fairly low, we wanted to create a kind of country feel in here, so we went for shaker cabinetry that kind of can be painted and repainted. So this cabinetry used to be grey, and we've recently repainted it this kind of olive colour, going for kind of a palette of sludgy greens that give a kind of warmth, I think, to the space. We've also more recently added brass accents in the form of handles on the cabinetry. We also went for a limestone floor in here, in fact using a similar tile to outdoors. It really kind of works well in a Cotswold setting. It feels quite laid back, it feels quite relaxed, it doesn't really show marks, and I think it ages beautifully. We've got the island, which is crafted from oak. We've got the splashback and the worktop here, which is marble, and I think that those natural touches, the brass, the wood, the marble, are things that just stand the test of time. They're timeless pieces, they're never going to age. So the island is a brilliant space. When we had this kitchen designed, I remember the kitchen designer coming up with something of this scale, and I remember thinking, are you crazy? This is absolutely huge. But in actual fact, a space like this really needs this bold statement in the centre of the room, and you know it means that there's enough space, you know, there's enough cupboards, there are enough drawers for all our stuff. This is a really lovely place to be able to cook, you know, there's space to, you know, make bread, make lunch, when, cook socially with friends when they're around, or when the children are home and they're doing their homework at the table, I can be here and we can be chatting away. It's a really nice sociable space. I remember when we first moved in and I started cooking on Onaga feeling quite apprehensive, but now I wouldn't want to cook in any other way. It's brilliant that it's on all the time. Rhubarb, our puppy, loves curling up here. When she's been out for a walk, she'll come in and dry off here, and it's a really kind of cosy addition to the kitchen. It always makes the kitchen feel lovely and warm, probably a little too warm on a day like today. I love it when the kids come home and I can give them a snack like this, something homemade, home baked ahead of dinner. Just off the kitchen is this sunroom, which really comes into its own on a day like today. It's flooded with natural light, has this beautiful glass lantern, and really takes advantage of the views over the countryside beyond. It's a really lovely place to sit and relax. I'll often sit here with a book and a cup of tea, and even in the winter, when it's kind of hammering with rain, it's really lovely to sit in here and watch the storm clouds above. And then through these French doors, we've got a lovely sunken garden, which is lovely on a day like today. You can sit and enjoy the sunshine, sit under the parasol in the shade. I've recently planted some hydrangeas here. The ones at the front next to the porch are kind of, in full bloom now, and they are kind of quite established. They're 15 years old. And I wanted to also create here this kind of backdrop of kind of frothy hydrangeas that we can look out on from the sunroom, and they'll be a real feature, I think. We've also got this mower, which my daughter has nicknamed Grasso de Grassi. It's probably the best thing I've ever bought. Before that, we had a ride-on mower, and I used to be out here, I don't know, twice a week for an hour and a half each time. And this little chap works away, and it takes the pressure off. It's been worth its weight in gold, I think. We've got a lovely dining area here, and there's little that I like more than sitting out here of a summer evening, eating together, chatting long into the night. This patio, it's incredible to kind of look at it now. At one point, there was nothing here at all. It was just grass. At one point, we had kind of piles of mud heaped up in the garden, and the kids would be skiing down them, using them for BMX tracks. And now we've created this patio, which really works so well for us. So it's a place to relax, it's a place to eat, it's a place to socialise, but it's also a place for my kids who are, sport obsessives to play, even when it's, belting down with rain. They can still be here playing cricket, playing volleyball on the patio, and it's a really lovely, fun space. I wanted to show you also this other dining area we have, which is really nice for sociable family eating. We recently added a pizza oven, and it's great fun to sit out here of an evening making pizzas, chatting over a glass of wine and hearing about everybody's day. We're going to head back inside now. You can either go in through the kitchen, past the dining area here, or this way through the bifold doors. This is the living and dining area. There's an interesting story about this table actually, which I designed myself, got somebody to turn the legs for me, and I actually went to the local timber merchants and hand selected the panels of wood to go on here, kind of the knottier and more characterful the better. And then we'll go on through to the living area. So this is where we'll often sit together as a family. We'll perhaps watch a film. The kids, as I mentioned, are sports obsessives. We'll watch cricket on TV. And it's a really lovely, cosy space to be. In the winter, we'll get the wood burner blazing, probably a little bit warm on a day like today. But it's a really cosy, open plan space that's perfect for socialising. We laid a quirky hearth here with these mismatched Moroccan tiles. You'll see them again in a moment. Look out for that. I've also got a media wall here with a TV that can turn into artwork. I think it looks so much more aesthetic and kind of really sort of chimes with the feel in here. These paintings are by a good friend of mine. I had these commissioned. They were the inspiration really for the colour scheme in here. So, when I came to choose the fabric for the sofa, I wanted to pick out the blues and the yellows and the pinks from the paintings. And although this is where we watch TV, I also wanted to introduce some of my books. Books are a huge passion of mine, and I've got this overflowing collection. They've even found themselves onto the shelves in here. Although I managed to squeeze in a few books next door, I wanted a dedicated room to celebrate my love of books and reading. When we renovated, I knew this was going to be the perfect space. It's got the fireplace, it's got the comfortable chair, it's a lovely place to sit in the evening with a book and perhaps even a glass of wine. This part of the house is where the children's bedrooms and bathroom are. This is my youngest daughter's room. She's a really keen reader, so we've kind of like kitted it out with a nice kind of pretty vintage style bed, some bookcases, and it kind of really suits her personality quite well, I think. And then across the corridor there is the children's bathroom. It's got a really lovely roll-top bath, shutters, and it's a really nice family space. At the end of the corridor are the other two children's bedrooms, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the artwork first of all. This was a piece that I picked up from auction, an auction house in London, really fell in love with it. At one time there was some suggestion whether it was a Frank Brangwyn, a kind of famous artist, and actually I think it's probably a copy, but I still love it. This room belongs to Caris, my eldest daughter. It's been through several evolutions, kind of from the time when she was a tiny tot to kind of, now as a teenage girl. It now has this kind of like pretty, more grown-up feel that really suits her personality. So she's kind of feminine without being girly. She's quite sporty, and it really kind of fits her character, I think. We added panelling, wallpaper. We've got like pretty rechargeable lights so that there's atmosphere, and I've also added in some vintage pieces. So I've got the antique desk where she's been revising for her exams recently, vintage style bed, and it really fits into this old-fashioned feel. This room belongs to my son, Dylan. He's a reader, a sportsman, and he fell in love with this kind of aesthetic. Well, we went for breakfast one day at the Ned, and he really wanted me to kind of replicate that sort of laid-back vintage feel in his bedroom. So we added panelling, wallpaper, there are brass accents with the light fittings, with the wardrobe handles. There's this lovely cast iron bed from the Cornish Bed Company. I picked up this mahogany desk, beautifully inlaid, on eBay, and I just think that the kind of mix of some older pieces, newer pieces creates for a really kind of laid back feel. So if we go down now to the other part of the house, I wanted to show you actually first of all this incredible light fitting, which is from a Marrakesh nightclub. I saw this at a London auction, fell in love with it, bid on it, was successful, and then thought, oh my God, how am I going to get this piece home? Fortunately, it came apart in 3 pieces, so we were actually able to get it through the door, but we did have to reinforce the roof in order to make sure that it was safe. It's that heavy. This is part of the original house. This is the kind of original 2 up, 2 down cottage. And this area here is where we've extended. So this is the guest bathroom and bedroom. I love to have friends round. I love to make this a really welcoming, inviting place for them to stay. It's kind of part of the build up to the weekend, I think, creating this sort of nurturing, welcoming space. I've got a friend coming this weekend and she's going to be staying here, and I think it's just so lovely to share our home with friends and family. And I can also show you the bathroom, which is just through here. So this is our crazy, creative bathroom. I did think at one point about going for something more cohesive, and I decided in the end I wanted kind of something mismatched and fun, and that was a little bit unusual. My brother actually laid these tiles for us. I think it's his pride and joy. He's helped us in all sorts of ways with the house, and I kind of worked with him on this. I think initially he maybe thought, what on earth are you doing? But he loves the look of it now, and I think it's kind of, you know, one of the things that he looks back on and thinks, you know, feels a real sense of pride about. So this is the master suite. It's in the new part of the house. It was really important to us to create this kind of like spacious, decadent feel in here, taking advantage of the views over the open countryside. One of the most wonderful things, I think, is waking up, pulling back the curtains, looking out over the fields and taking in the views. Not only have we got the balcony, we've also got these oak beams. At one point, I think that this was just going to be structural, and we decided, in fact, what we wanted to do was open up, create this vaulted ceiling, have these oak beams, which kind of make it feel older, more rustic, more part of the countryside setting, I think, really. The cast iron bed is a fairly recent addition. It's from the Cornish Bed Company. It adds this kind of like vintage style that I love so much. I like to mix up kind of pattern and stripe and, you know, colour and texture. And I think that, you know, you can really see that work in this space. The cast iron radiators add a really lovely feel. We've added those wherever we can throughout the house. So we do have some underfloor heating, but where we've got radiators, we kind of want to make a feature of those. But I think it's kind of a mix of old and new. So there are these old pieces, but we've also created some new additions, like the niche for my books here, these kind of industrial wall lamps that I actually had imported from America, not realising that I was going to have to pay import tax on them. And so it's a kind of nice blend of sort of older and newer pieces. This is the master ensuite with the double sink. This was always a dream of mine, to have space to be able to have this double sink in here. In here we've also got a copper bath, a nice shower, and also kind of, you know, similar sort of vintage pieces in here, or vintage inspired, I should say. So the toilet, the light fittings have got this kind of Art Deco vibe. There's a towel rail that it kind of feels quite Victorian. And so it kind of is a mix of kind of period and more kind of quirky modern pieces, I think. The scallop marble tiles are a new addition. And one thing that I've kind of wanted to do throughout the whole renovation is to use natural materials wherever possible. So we've got marble, we have oak, we have stainless steel, we have brass, and I think that those kind of textures and materials are things that just never date. They're classics, they're going to kind of stand the test of time. So we've got this floor-to-ceiling glazing in order to take advantage of these beautiful views. One of the things that is, you know, that really drew us to this spot was the fact that it has these amazing views over an open countryside. And, you know, we really wanted to draw those views in, draw the outside in. It's the reason also that we created this balcony. It's a lovely place to sit, you know, on a Saturday morning with a cup of tea and the papers, or to kind of relax at the end of the day with a glass of wine. That's the end of the tour. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more from me, I'm on Instagram at Rocking the Cotswolds, and I'm also thinking about starting a YouTube channel, so let me know in the comments if that's something you would like to see. Thanks very much for coming.